Okay, so I would like to walk you through the designs I have for the state versions comparison and the diff. I have three main problems that I want to discuss. The one is actually more a design problem. So two main problems and then a sub-design problem. So the first is how do we group and show data to the users? We have two levels of hierarchy. We could group the items by created, updated, deleted, or we could show all the individual resources and then indicate whether they have been updated, created, updated, or deleted. I'll give you more context while showing. This is problem number one. And problem number two is how do we show the diff, the actual diff? Just for reference for the team, we've been having a discussion in the issue where you did an initial POC of how the diffs would be shown. And this was the automatic output. You didn't do anything, right?
Right. So this would be more of a line-by-line diff, and the problem I really found with it was it's really difficult to know what resource this change is actually occurring to, because you don't really get enough context lines to see the name of the resource. You have the number of the resource in the state file, like the index in the array, but you don't have the name. The name is a little bit higher up. You can see in the second diff section that a name for a resource, one that's not being changed, is there. So like you have serial 5 and serial 6, and right above that you have resources 314 name default.
Yeah.
But for the resources 122, you don't get to see the name. So you don't really know what's changing 4 gigs to 8 gigs.
Yeah, and the primary use case, at least when I spoke to users, was that they want to see changes. Well, they want to see for specific resources. So they either want to find a specific resource first and then see the changes, or types of resources. So it's really important for them to see. So your second suggestion was to group by type of change, and then resource name, somehow parse it from the file. And then these would be the changes. I had a question here. Are these expandable or not?
No, so I was kind of trying to stick with the diff output of plus means it's being added and minus means it's being deleted.
Yeah.
So this was intended to be more of a diff view. I just kind of did this in the markdown in the issue comment. We'd probably want to have the styling to be more like I guess like a code snippet, or like the diff view on an MR, but you would just have rather than having the diff view split out by file, the file would be the file name would be the resource type and name, and then we could optionally group them under the created, updated, deleted. I'm not sure if it might be sufficient to just see that everything about a resource is new and to know that it's being created. You know, we kind of show that with in the MR diff view of files. We kind of show you when a file is being completely added or completely deleted.
I actually didn't have an example of that. So this would be, everything would be green here, or would the widget be green as well?
I actually don't remember offhand what it looks like. Let me see. With a completely new file. So with a completely new file, the whole, like all of the lines of code are green. And the name of the file, there's a statistics summary, plus number of lines, minus number of lines. And so it's just plus a number, but minus 0.
So something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move to the design and we can see.
And actually, if you look at the changes, if you click the little tree view next to compare up a little bit to this little tree. Yeah. There's a green plus that means a file is being added, so that changelog is being added.
Oh, so the whole file, that's what it means.
Yep.
Okay, because I used these in the designs. So I guess I used it correctly. Let's go to the designs and then we can see what's useful and what's not. Okay, so I have 3 different designs for the problem number 1. How do we surface the groups and the data, basically? So design number 1 is filters. So I'm reusing components from the MR page here. As you can see, the comparisons on the top. For MVC, we can only choose 2 consecutive versions. So if you would change the version, the other one would be automatically changed. Then this is exact repetition from here. Actually, not here. Sorry, I had it in our project. So here, so showing 3 changed files, where you can also expand that and select the changed file. And these are the total number of changes. So for the state example, we have a number of changed resources.
Okay. I actually really like that.
And then we show how many were created, updated, and deleted. If you would expand this, then you could select a specific resource.
Okay.
So I guess the use of icons here is relevant because this was created, this was changed, and this was removed.
Yep. I think the only difference to the MR is that they use an orange color for the updated.
For this one. Yeah, but I didn't want to create any urgency for the updated.
That's fair. Yeah.
And once you select one of them, it gets filtered. No, it scrolls actually, because this is the experience in the MR. If I were to select
a specific file,
it just scrolls to this file to the top.
I think that's really good. I think that's good.
So then if you want to filter, I have 2 options. One with a non-existing pattern, I think, which would be to click here on the summary of how many were created. And once you clicked, it would filter the list and would only show you the created ones and give you an ability to go back to view all. This design is not final, so it could be an X, could be something else. So this pattern does not exist. And then I use the pattern that does exist. So in this case, I used the summary we have in the MR page. So here we have in the MR page, sorry, like 4 files were affected, that many things were added, that many things were removed. So I also played around with this, which I don't prefer, but in this case, we have filters, an actual drop-down where you see all changes and you would select created, updated, and deleted. Or the filter would be positioned next to resources. So this is option number 1. Option number 2 is our good old tabs. So this is a pattern that does exist. And you could see all the changes. You can see then created, updated, and deleted only. And again, you would be able to search specific resources from the search. And third option, the one I'm currently working on, and it's the most complex, but I think quite promising if we brainstorm on how we can evolve it. I have 2 versions of this. One is I have not applied filtering here yet, but it would have some filtering. To group all the created under an expandable component. And then you would see the resource name and what changed, resource name and what changed, and then the same here, but I wanted to speak about this version more. So this is kind of using the diff of EMR, where you see all the lines of code. Basically, you see only the changed lines. I think this is a better example. You have the whole context, but you only see the changed parts in the beginning. So if you wanted to see more of the JSON of the state file, you could expand and see more of it. And we would probably show the format you use here, but showing also the resource type on top. And then you could also filter by updated, deleted, and created. The thing I don't know, and that's I think the main factor for deciding what design pattern is right, is do users want to see the rest of the JSON here? Do they want to see the change of resource in the larger context of the state file? Do they care where in the file this resource is positioned? And do we want to use the diff as a way to let them preview the JSON as well? Because in this page, we could have also the view 20 more lines that we have, again, wrong, that we have here.
My instinct says no, that looking at the diff, they're, at least for me, I'm probably only interested in what changed. As far as like relative position in the JSON, like I'm almost, like it's not something that I have control over, so I can't really affect the order since Terraform is the one that serializes to JSON. So like I as a user really never interact with that. It's useful for me to be able to like get the whole JSON raw. Potentially I want to script, use a script to parse it or do something with it. Sometimes, I might want to download it and use it locally. I might want to, have the whole thing, but I don't think I would be, I guess, concerned with like where a specific resource is in the file, since I can't control that. That being said, I like the view of having kind of the diff with the resource type and name, but I think you have that in all three options. It's like the resource type and name is very close to the attributes that are changing, so you kind of, I think you solve that with all of them.
Yeah, so the difference is in the first one and the second one, the resource is on top, and then you filter by created, updated, and deleted. In the third, the difference is that you view them grouped by type of change here, but all the resources that belong in that type of group, this could be expandable and collapsible as well, the resource. But it's like two levels of indentation rather than filtering.
I feel like that was what or at least what I was initially envisioning, and now that I see it, I'm not sure that it's my favorite.
Maybe it's the design. So I was just exploring today, and definitely these two would need a lot more work. So I've worked a lot in more detail with these, but so the thing is, we don't have a good pattern to have two levels of expanding and collapsing. And we would need to create a better one, which.
So I wonder if that's maybe, like, I know that that's kind of what I wanted initially, but I'm wondering if maybe that's not the right, maybe that's too much like indirection before you get to the information. So I wonder if Is it your first one that they're treated like files more? Yeah, this one. So
yeah, this is the cleaner also. So how many changes do you anticipate between two versions?
that's the thing is with some versions, like especially your first and second ones, a lot, thousands, right? Probably thousands of resources. Um, in following changes, probably less. You know, in the tens to hundreds, maybe just one. Um, you know, a lot of times it might be just one or two. So it's like we kind of have to design for both.
Yeah.
The thing that concerns me with the expanding collapsing ones is in the case of thousands, only the created section will have anything in it, and it'll be huge. So just trying to find a specific resource or filter a resource, that becomes really important, is that filter and search piece. That almost makes me wonder, since I think my favorite so far is the one where you're treating each resource like its own file.
Like,
yeah, where you're kind of reusing stuff from the MR. The MR, that tree that we just looked at, it has a filter, it has a search on it. And it also shows you what things are new, what things are updated, what things are removed. Could we use that too? So that would basically be just the list of resources. We could, I guess, group them under type, like treat the type of resource like the folder. So instead of like change logs unreleased, you could have, you know, AWS instance. And then under that, you would have all the names of the instances. And each one of those is treated like a file. And clicking on it scrolls you to it.
So you mean here
mm-hmm.
on the left, instead of this, we would have resource name.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we don't need the path, right?
I guess the path, the path could be the resource type.
Oh.
Or module.
Yeah. Could definitely do
that. But I think the key thing for me is the search, because when you do have thousands, you're going to need to be able to jump to a specific one kind of by name.
Yeah. Why are these two pages different?
So this is a commit.
Right, okay. And the other one is
the MR.
MAR. So we're more interested in...
I guess I don't understand why they're different. I feel like they could be the same, but I think the MR one is a little more featureful. If you click 3 changed files, do you get you get a search.
You get the scrolling and a search. So that's why I'm wondering if it would be a duplication to have a search on the left and within the main diff page, but that's a detail.
I guess the advantage to me of the tree on the left is if you have thousands of resources, you actually get to see a list of all the resources that are changed.
Yeah.
You could actually kind of scroll that little tree to find, if you don't know what it's called or don't remember what it's called, you could kind of start to filter. Maybe you still have a few hundred in the list, and then kind of scroll through and pick out the one you want.
Yep, I agree. I want to show you also something that it will take a while, but how they handle massive changes in this. Well, it's very similar to the commit page. So here we would have resource type. We could group all the resources of that resource type under, which is great.
We can show which ones are added, or created, updated, deleted with the little icon, and kind of stay consistent with how the MR works.
And search as well. And then I have to decide whether 2 searches are relevant. Yeah, and then have 1 entry per resource here. So 1 widget, sorry. Okay. I think that will work. In terms of the content now, which is our second problem. There it is. So now I'm comparing between master and the random branch that I chose. So 2000 changed files here. But you're right. I cannot browse what files. I can browse only the dropdown here.
And that feels, it feels very small if you have that many changes to be scrolling in this little box.
For 2000 files? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to scroll a lot.
So I think that's why I prefer the tree. I actually get to see more of the, I guess in our case, the resources.
Yeah. And we could be smart and show the tree for more than 10 changed items. Even though I don't see, okay, it might feel a bit redundant to have it for one change, but it's okay.
We could just initially just show it all the time.
Yeah. Also, okay.
That might help with the reducing the duplication of the search, because if it's already open and the search is right there.
When I search here, does it also filter the screen?
No, it just filters the tree.
Right.
And then you click and you jump and it scrolls you.
Okay. So if you had both, it might be a bit confusing. All right. And going to the how we display the actual diff now. Let's go back to the designs, even though my representation is not great. But let's use this example. You said already that you probably don't really care about the things that preceded and follow the change. And you don't really care where you are in the state. So, yeah. And that's why you proposed this actually, that I only care about these things that I have configured for this new resource and were implemented. We can do a bit of solution validation with the infrastructure team, which is, I think, but if I am going to ask them, I want to know what I'm asking them. So
I think the interesting thing for me is that it may actually end up being kind of a hybrid of these. So the one where it has the brackets and the resources and 122 and instances. So that's an artifact of actually parsing the JSON and making a line with all of the hierarchy in one line so that you can diff it easily with like standard command line diff tools. This, I don't think this is super useful for what we're doing. So now that we're kind of in this, like we're comparing them a little bit like files, I would be curious to know if in solution validation, if you can ask people, if they would want to know what line of the JSON file the change is occurring in, not necessarily because they might care about the order, but in terms of being able to reference it to tell someone else or like comment on a changed line.
There is another solution in GitLab for that, interestingly enough. I found somewhere that not somewhere, in the MR again, that they do show the number of lines. Or they show something here that I interpreted that were the number of lines that this change took place in. So we could also or we could provide like the parsed change and then allow them to expand the whole section where this was parsed from.
Kind of something more like what you have in the deleted one below, where you have line numbers, and those line numbers would correspond to the original line numbers in the state file.
So this could be, for example, 5887, right? And this could span across, well, 500 lines, let's say. If you were to expand the whole section, we have taken one thing from one place. Oh, you could show me maybe.
Kind of in the, if you look in the MR, we have two columns. So we have like the 2 columns of line numbers.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, exactly.
I think the left column is the like the before version line number, and the second column is the new version line number.
Indeed, because here it's 71. Yeah.
I don't know how hard it would be to actually implement it this way, but I think I like how it looks.
Basically to have the first, not the before, but yeah, the expanded row numbers. So this wouldn't necessarily be a sequence.
Yeah, they might not necessarily be in sequence. That's true.
Which is fine, I guess. But we could provide the ability to expand between them.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see the in between, maybe just.
Yeah, so I think overall, I'm not sure there's value in the additional layer of hierarchy under created, updated, deleted. So I think that's probably something we can not have. Yeah, I think this version is probably the one I like the most. We can do the tree, and then yeah, I think the question then becomes if we need or want line numbers to correspond to the actual line numbers in the 2 JSON files. And again, I'm thinking about that in the context of like 2 people are talking about a change, and you know they're on the phone and someone says, well, you know, look at line 587.
Yeah.
Having someone being able to reference that, I think, is probably valuable. But I'd be curious to know what other people think, if that's something they would want to use.
I think something, yeah, to do a bit of problem validation or solution validation. I don't know what it is in that case.
Yeah, like on the one hand, they might say like, look at DigitalOcean droplet Matt Kasa temp disk, or maybe they want to say, yeah, look at line 552.
Yeah,
it's a little bit faster.
Yeah. Okay, I will share this video with the team, and I will share a shorter version, I guess, if they just want to see the designs and not our conversation. And the last thing that I mentioned, and it's not by any means as important, but I was wondering, and that's a pure design thing. Could we have dynamic icons based on the type of resource? Maybe we don't have enough icons, but I thought it's a nice idea.
It is a nice idea. I think the icons would probably be maybe an initial pass at it could be a provider specific icon. So like there would be an AWS one, a GCP one, you know, a local file one. Kind of look at the list of providers that Terraform supports and maybe build a collection of icons at that level. Because then you're looking at probably under 100. But if you're doing icons that are specific to like, okay, this is an AWS RDS database instance, you know, then we're into the thousands of icons.
Well, we would use just basic like networking change, database change, the resource, like cloud resource change. But that was my second question. First is, no, I have three. Yeah, do we want to do dynamic? Do we want to do color coding? Does it help? Or do we want to use like the same icon, no color coding, or just basic file icon? no color coding, but that's after we figure out the other problems. I'm going to leave you think about it.
I think I like the icons. I think the color coding on the name is probably not necessary, as long as we're showing either the badge, or in the case if we follow the MR pattern, I think they show it as like the number of new lines, number of deleted lines.
Mm-hmm.
But potentially the badges that you have might be more useful.
I thought so, because you care that one resource was added, but do you care about how many new lines were added?
I can't really think that I would.
So
I think I like the badge better. Yeah, I agree. And then that color coding can correspond to your filters if you decide to do those.
Yeah.
I think I would keep the file names all a consistent color. Okay. And then icon wise, it would be a nice to have. It's probably a lot to implement for a nice to have, but I would still like to have it. It's just like you said, just if we could classify changes by type or by provider, I think that would be nice. I know that we have we display a little, a little whale icon for a Docker file. We display a little Tanuki for GitLab CI YAML. So we kind of have not to say a pattern, but we have a pre-existing, and we show a little view icon for view files.
Yeah, this is where I got the inspiration from, and I was like, why do they use icons in MR? And we can't. Nice. It's nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, this line annoys me. I think it's a bug from all the UI changes.
Because it should only be.
Yeah. That wide. Be as wide as the screen.
Yep.
Anyway, cool. So I'm taking away, we could do the icons, but it's too much work. But we could do some sort of iconography, maybe.
I think it'd be nice.
And using consistent colors for name, using the badges, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
Adding the tree and the filtering mechanism, and ask people who are using Terraform, at least, how they, well, if they would care in the line numbers. I'm curious about the context as well, what came before and what follows.
Like whether we need to expand the 20 lines before, 20 lines after. Yeah, me too.
Since we're not showing the JSON anywhere else, I would just like to ask them, because if they just want to see a few bits, it's a shame to make them download it to search for the specific part.
Yeah.
But if they say, no, I don't care, then we can just keep the lines as they are here.
Yeah, declutter a little bit. Like I want it to be useful, not to come off as cluttery.
Yeah, this definitely feels too cluttery, this view. It's also the blurring, but
I really enjoy the separation between resources, almost treating them like separate files. I think that really helps visually.
Cool. Then this is a clear winner for you, this or this. But yeah, tabs, we don't even.
Yeah, I think the tabs aren't my favorite, because I'm here to see the diff, not to see like 3 diffs, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this feels much cleaner. Like this looks like I would expect it to look. Like this looks great.
Cool. So a bit more discovery for the content, and I guess we're almost done for it. Let me stop recording. No.